Yoshi, a young man, fishes on a mountain using his sword style known as Yuki-her style. He was on his way when he faces traps and is even attacked by his father, but Yoshi defeats him and returns them to their house. His father praised his son's tenacity over his 17 years of mountain training, which allowed him to improve his skills. Yoshi is smarter than his father, but he knows nothing about the world outside the mountain, and his father doesn't have anything to teach him anymore. So his father decided to make him lead the mountain in order for him to get experience. Outside, his father urged him to go to the Ikaruga family, who has a dojo, in order to become an amazing warrior throughout the city, as well as one of the families capable of employing Yukiya style. His father delivered a letter to them through an arrow. It was delivered to the Ikaruga family by a girl named Ibuki Habuki, who told her sisters about Yoshi's arrival, to live in their home, but her blonde sister Ayemi objects. So Ibuki explains that their family is the Ikaruga, and they are Karasuma. They can trust him because they share a same ancestor. Chiha, the green inherited sibling, concurs as well. Yoshi is staying since she believes they could need a male in an emergency. Yoshi, on the other hand, has finally come. The city and its inhabitants took notice of his unusual attire. When a man unexpectedly bumped into him, he was pulling out a piece of paper. The guy's name is Ryo, and he wanted to annoy Yoshi by calling his sword imitation, so Yoshi assaulted him, but he was stopped by a police officer. He was arrested right away. Ryo, on the other hand, noticed that Yoshi's sword had made no touch with him. Despite this, he was able to fling him with an air blast. At the police station, Yoshi sat with the cops and introduced himself. The cops noted his pallor, but mentioned that his attire was unusual because no one wore stuff like that anymore, so he inquired, "It's a crime to not act like everyone else." He then noted the time and left the station as the females were waiting for him. Ayame became bored and went shopping with Chiha, joining her. Their youngest sister, Kigo, also left to go to the bathroom. Yoshi used the escalator to the restroom since he couldn't read the elevator instructions. Unfortunately, Yoshi lost his balance and crashed into a cart, ending himself inside the changing room where Ayame tried to scream in the changing room, but his instincts lead him to coer her mouth and accidentally touch her. So she kicked him out, but then he came upon a snatcher and began to chase him. He was following the snatcher inside the bookstore when he accidentally ran into Chiha. Nonetheless, Yoshi persisted in his pursuit. The snatcher was defeated using the Yukiya style. He then noted the time and departed right away. Yoshi wanted to go back to the mountain instead of staying in the city, but then he noticed a girl crying. Yoshi had tried to console Kigo and promised to return her to her sister. He asked her to describe her sister, to which she replied that her sister has large melons. So they began hunting for girls with large melons, and eventually Kigo discovered Ibuki. However, when the police officers arrived to arrest Yoshi, he took Kigo with him and returned her to Ibuki. Yoshi accidentally crashed outside the wind window and fell on a train after handing Kigo to Ibuki. When the train arrived, he wondered if the individuals he was meant to meet were still there. Ibuki emerged out of nowhere. She inquired as to whether he was Yoshi Ibuki. She identified herself as the Ikaruga Dojo's acting Yuki-ha-style instructor. Yoshi was meant to meet this guy while they were conversing, but a police officer arrived to arrest him. Yoshi explained that he needed to apologize to the people at the mall before the police realized his sincerity and let him leave. When the two got home, Yoshi introduced himself to the girls. The next day, he was recognized. Ibuki muses about the conversation she had with her sisters the night before. Ayame, her sister, disapproves of Yoshi staying with them. Because of the encounter in the changing room, she believes he is a pervert. Chia Ibuki explains that it could have simply been an accident because Yoshi is a Yuki-ha-style swordsman. Kigo believes in him because he helped her when she got lost. Ibuki was walking to the dojo when she noticed Yoshi was performing his morning workout when he met her and observed she was going to clean, so he asked her to do the cleaning. Ibuki resists, but when he touches her hand, she gets splashed with water. She also read his template about talking to a female with a big chest, and he said that he composed it to show his happiness from meeting her. Ibuki became enraged after meeting him and kicked him. Unfortunately, Yoshi fell inside Ima's room by accident, and other sisters witnessed it. Ibuki gave him another thrashing while he was eating. Yoshi was reminded by Ibuki that they were going to school. He thanked them for allowing him to attend, but Ayame assumed he was just eager to be there around ladies and ordered him not to speak to her at Jako High School, where other kids were discussing Ryo was beaten up at the station, and his friend Keita appears, but Ryo flees when he discovers Ibuki. He was taken aback when he saw Yoshi with her inside the classroom. Yoshi introduces himself to the students, and the instructor inquires whether he is linked to Ibuki. Yoshi explains that he resides at the Icarus Dojo, which enrages Ryo. Yoshi then recalls Ryo and begins to tell him about the incident at the station, but Ryo stops him inside the restroom. Ibuki's classmate believes Yoshi was chosen by her parents to be her fiancé, so Ibuki emphasizes that he is not her fiancé. Meanwhile, Yoshi is surrounded by girls and begins fantasizing about them, which attracts the attention of the Ibuki's wrath, who advises him to keep himself in check. Ryo overhears Ibuki reprimand Yoshi about his gaze at other girls, and he incorrectly believes Yoshi is cheating on her, so he dares him to a fight. Ryoku made use of training as a boxer, was confident in his ability to defeat Yoshi, and began attacking him. Yoshi commended his power, so he removed his weapon in order to fight fairly. The two continued to battle until Ryo punched him with spiky iron knuckles. Yoshi, on the other hand, smashed them with his bare hand and vanquished him. Yoshi chastised him for employing a weapon instead of relying on his own fist, and reminded him that if Ryo wanted to fight fairly again, he would accept the challenge again. Ibuki then walks over to Ryo and offers him her handkerchief. I was present at the scene and discovered that Yoshi isn't just a perv. Yoshi got a fever after class, so Ima attempted to make rice porridge for him after Ibuki. His receding fever was checked. She left to go shopping and abandon him, and she is concerned. Ibuki is violent, according to Yoshi, although it was also sweet of her to explain that Ibuki doesn't hit out of spite. She does it because she was left in charge of their house when their parents left on a trip, which is why she works so hard to safeguard the dojo and look after her siblings. That is why she is so strict. Yoshi resolved to apologize to Ibuki for labeling her violent when she was younger. Ima's cooking was a flop, but Kiko noticed and volunteered to help her finish cooking. She rushed to offer Yoshi the porridge, but he wasn't in his room. Yoshi had just yielded in front of Ibuki, who had just returned. Ibuki chastised him and reminded him that he hadn't entirely recovered. Nonetheless, Yoshi stated that he wanted to apologize, something Ibuki also said at the same time. The two then shared a laugh over it, seen and was envious of the beauty, so she raced away but slipped. She believes that no matter how hard she tries, nobody will notice her since Ibuki is better. But Yoshi follows her and tells her not to give up. While attempting to save the porridge, he falls out the window, but manages to save and consume it. He complimented Ima's cuisine, which made her happy. The other girls saw it and were taken aback to see Ayame. Yoshi then complimented her smile, which embarrassed Ayame, so she branded him a pervert once more. In the meanwhile, two unknown girls approached the city in search of the martial artist with Karasuma blood. The pink-haired girl named Tsubasa was taken aback by the city, but Angela reminded her that their aim was the swordsman Yoshi of the Uchiha style, which they needed to vanquish in order to resurrect their Subain style. But Tsubasa suddenly disappeared, and Angel evaluated her substitute strategy, concluding that Tsubasa was really the true next head of their family. Ibuki and Yoshi were cleaning with Ayame. Ibuki commended Ayame for her assistance and attendance at the training. She inquired as to the basis for this. Ayame claims it was nothing, but it was because Chia informed her she was at a disadvantage because Ibuki and Yoshi were there. She's in the same class as Yoshi, therefore she should be at the dojo at school. Tsubasa was assigned to Yoshi's class. Angel noticed her and commended Tsubasa for flawlessly carrying out the plan. Nevertheless, Tsubasa actually intends to keep her distance from Yoshi because defeating him will fulfill her quest, preventing her from staying in the city after class. Tsubasa's classmates swarmed her with questions, but she couldn't simply ignore them and mention that her entire family was devoted to martial arts in the mountains. Suddenly, a ball was tossed in her direction. She slashed it with her bare hands after being directed. She felt her normal life was finished, but Yoshi complimented her and asked what she was doing. Ibuki then stepped in and explained to Tsubasa that her peers just wanted to get to understand her better. After school, she introduced herself as the class president to Tsubasa. Tsubasa inadvertently collided into Ryo, on the other hand, told her that everything was fine, and Tsubasa believed he was a wonderful guy. Angela appeared unexpectedly and reminded her of their main goal, assassinating Yoshi Tsubasa, and then used her substitute technique to flee because she didn't want to do it. She loved being a high school student and finally had the friends she yearned for on her way. She unintentionally ran into Yoshi and Ibuki, but Angela appeared out of nowhere and yanked her clothes. Yoshi was challenged to a match against Tsubasa. Tsubasa attacked Yoshi right away, and he observed that her eyes were emotionless. Angela claimed that she took advantage of Tsubasa's shyness and forced her to undergo training that enabled her to fight. When she was banished, she was able to display 100 of her battle powers because her emotions were shut down. She persisted in her assault Yoshi, but Ryo saw what was going on and misinterpreted it again, so he gave Tsubasa his sweater and agreed to fight. Yoshi, on the other hand, abruptly returned to normal and departed, humiliated. Angela was taken aback by her reversion. She wanted to know what was wrong, so she followed Tsubasa and asked her. She stated that she did not want others, particularly Ryo, regard her as such, and thinks she despises martial arts, as does Angela outside of the dojo. Angela assaulted Yoshi, but he managed to cut her clothes. When the sisters came, she explained why she had come to Yoshi, and Angela revealed that someone had ordered that she assassinate Yoshi, and that if she succeeded, the person would offer them a large reward. She continued her onslaught, despite receiving a large sum of money and assistance to restore their Subain style, but he was able to stop her. She was urged not to accept requests from unknown clients in order to revitalize their style. He highlights the need of authentic pride. He urged Angela and Tsubasa not to lose sight of their spirit and expertise in protecting their style. Angela. After leaving, she met with Tsubasa, who persuaded her to quit following Yoshi because he was her first friend, and she agreed for wanting Angela to be his friend as well. A few days later, Yoshi and Ibuki were talking about how Tsubasa and Angela never appeared again. They were surprised to see Tsubasa, who explained that she and Angela were now working part-time. Angela thanked Yoshi for reminding them not to lose sight of what actually matters, and she promised to do so in the future. Outside of the dojo, they would revitalize the Subain style on their own. She received a phone call regarding her manga, and while Yoshi and Ibuki were performing a dual show for their students, they promised to provide the new one the following week. Yoshi was impressed by Ibuki's Ibuki's strength, so he tried to be serious, but he accidentally slashed her clothes after class. Yoshi returned home and concluded that the reason they only have 4 students is because Ibuki and Ayame are violent. Outside the dojo, Ryo came to return the handkerchief that Ibuki had loaned him, but he observed his clothes and decided to leave and change. Chihad approached Yoshi and asked him to take him into her room. Yoshi was blown away by Chia's manga. She then moved on to her goal, asking Yoshi whether he likes her, and she begins to lure him, but Yoshi interrupts her and explains that he came from the mountain to train. Chiha was also lectured for undressing easily for a male. She then said she was joking and only wanted to see what kind of man he is, but Ibuki appeared out of nowhere and saw them. Yoshi tried to explain, but she refused and said he wanted to push himself on her. After beating Yoshi, Ibuki told Chihad not to let a guy, especially him, into her room. She then mocked them by suggesting that their relationship must be very close, like that of a lover, and the two rejected it, but Ibuki said it's been a while since she's seen Chaha so happy, so she'll let it go. Chio doesn't get enough sleep because she works and goes to school at the same time, and she sometimes has to nap. She can't play with her pals because she skipped school, but it appears she was able to relieve some stress today. Shay got her manga idea after Ayama asked her what she'd done to Yoshi. Yoshi, according to her, is a good guy. Ima should not suppress her feelings for him. Kigo was delighted to show her sisters her painting piece the next day, but she returned home to Ibuki attempting to strike Yoshi, causing Yoshi to collide with Kigo and destroy her art project as a result. He was kicked out, but Ibuki later asked him to deliver Chiha's notebook. He then proceeded to Chiha's school. Ryo began to consider how to return the handkerchief to Ibuki. He decided to place it in an envelope in her locker along with a letter. While Ryo waited for Yuki, Ibuki and Yoshi went to their lockers and discovered the note. He came to express his feelings to her, but it was Yoshi Ukim, and he realized he had placed it in the incorrect locker. Then Yoshi thought Ryo was interested in learning martial arts at Ikaruga Dojo. Ryo was about to reveal the truth, but when Ibuki arrived and assured him that joining the dojo would help him advance, Ryo decided to join Ikaruga Dojo right away. Ryo went to the martial arts lesson with Kitha, freshening up with Ibuki before greeting him and the other students. Ibuki informs Ryo that because he is a new student, his class will be different, and his teacher will be Yoshi. Ryo finally completed 400 push-ups, but Yoshi says he'll do 1,000 push-ups as penance for being arrogant earlier, but Ryo doesn't agree, so he kept performing push-ups. Ryo is on the verge of giving up, but he can't because of Ibuki. After doing 1,000 push-ups, they halted, and Ryo was joyfully getting ready for their beach camping trip with Ibuki and the others. Kita, on the other hand, pointed out that the beach vacation on the island of Ibuki was arranged for today instead of tomorrow. Others went beach camping and asked Angela and Tsubasa, who were expecting Ryo to join them, but Ibuki reveals that Ryo was invited, but he did not show up. Yoshi appeared out of nowhere in his loincloth swimwear and was chastised. Meanwhile, the masked man and his sister Ibuki's group called out 2 men known as the Mizunagi brothers to murder Yoshi. Yoshi was seen by the Mizunagi brothers who called, and he was attacked by a bird. Yoshi was speaking with Ima when he noticed the bird attacking, but it was aimed towards Tsubasa, so he tried to save her but ended in pulling her underclothes. She kicked him right away, and he fell into Ibuki's group. They kept swimming, but Yoshi doesn't know how to swim, so Angela and Ayame tried to teach him, but the two to into it. As a result of their disagreement over who would do it, Ibuki assisted him, while Kigo was summoned by her friend. Misashi wants to go swimming, but Kigo refuses. Musashi also asked if she wanted to keep being worthless. Kigo replied that she wasn't worthless, and then went. Ibuki worried she had spoiled Kigo, but Yoshi thinks there could be a cause for her actions. Musashi then offered to return it. Meanwhile, Kiko wandered into the forest and accidentally stepped on a trap, but Musashi was just in time to save her. Yoshi and the others were aware of Kigo and Musashi had still not returned, so they began to look for them despite the rain that had already begun. They hadn't located the kids yet, and Ibuki blamed herself, believing she had revealed too much despite knowing Kigo was lying and was not good in athletics. While the youngsters were looking for a way out, Kigo began to blame herself, but Musashi intervened. He asserted that he was at fault and apologized to her. He then found a possible escape route, which they attempted and ran towards it, but it was a cliff, and Musashi plummeted into the water. When the others arrived, Yoshi acted quickly, plunged into the water despite not knowing how to swim, while the Mizunagi brothers appeared utilizing their boat manipulation style. This is a fabled combat style that is claimed to have drowned, according to Angela, many warriors in naval wars. The brothers attacked him immediately, so Yoshi requested the females for a sword. Kiko observed Musashi was drowning in the water, so she dove in and handed Yoshi his sword. He was attacked by the brothers. Using the huge swell to his advantage, Yoshi was able to generate pressure in the water and defeat the Mizunagi brothers. The next day, Ryo is on his way to send Ibuki his love letter while waiting for his pal, and several boys recognized him for being known. Ryo had a reputation as the city's strongest delinquent, yet he didn't appear as one when he helped an old man. Finally, Kita arrived and requested him to accompany him to a convenience store, which Ryo attempted to enter and take a drink. Aya may have also reached for it, thus they ended up fighting over it. 2 men entered the store and recognized Ryo, but they didn't recognize the female with him, so they snapped a picture of them. Ryo tried to give Ibuki his love letter, but he became nervous approaching her, while Ayomi meant to offer Yoshi a towel as ordered by Chiha. Instead, she mocked him as a country samurai. Ryo tried to approach her, but she warned him to go immediately. His letter fell by accident, and Ayame caught it. Tsubasa was on her way to the dojo to deliver ramen, but she notices Ryo on top of Ayame and believes they are in a relationship, so she leaves. Later, the group started eating in, Ibuki was wondering where Tsubasa had gone because she hadn't paid yet, so Yoshi offered to go to their store later. Ryo was lost in thought when the other kids begged for his food. Yoshi then complimented him on his gentler demeanor, and Ibuki has since followed suit, congratulated him for not skipping school anymore, and for always attending their martial arts classes. When Tsubasa was still crying, Chiha claimed Ryo was highly famous in middle school, and Angela tried to question her, "What's the matter?" But Tsubasa attacked her? Yoshi appeared out of nowhere and noticed her. Yoshi then took back the delivery box and complimented on their food. Yoshi was about to leave when more customers began to arrive, but he overheard them. Addressing Ryo, the group claimed to be from the Skull Union and labeled Ryo a jerk for attending both schools. They are planning an attack because they believe they can defeat him more easily now that he become weak. Outside of the dojo, he has a vulnerability. Ibuki said her goodbyes to the children, and Ryo was invited back. When the Skull Union entered the house and kidnapped Ayame, they took her to Ryo and threatened him that if he did not become their sandbag, they would broadcast images of Ime's body and cause him pain, and the individuals at the dojo. The group then starts pounding Ryo, but he can't fight them off. Or I would be undressed. The leader called Ryo weak after having people he needed to protect. Then Yoshi stepped in. Yoshi then warned the leader for referring to Ryo as weak, while he was still standing after all the hits he had endured. Yoshi then commended him for being a nice person and named him his friend. After Ryo defeated the Skull Union, Ibuki arrived. Ayame sprung out of nowhere. She assumed Yoshi was responsible and began striking him, but Ryo intervened. He assumed Ibuki was flirting with Yoshi, so he departed and later stated that Yoshi was not his friend. The next day, Ryo was zoning out while Ibuki was instructing the other students, thinking about her. Yoshi noticed and hit him, but Ryo persisted. He couldn't accept Yoshi as his teacher, so he left. Ryo has been displeased with being paired with Yoshi since he joined. He decided to reveal his love because he joined the dojo exclusively for Ibuki, so he shouted that he likes Ikaruga, but I believe I overheard him. Ryo then claims that I may have assumed I confessed to her because her surname is Akaruga Yoshi. Questioned Ayame because Yoshi felt dejected after being warned for teaching Ryo. Ryo attempted to explain the misunderstanding, but Ayame continued to attack him after the explanation. Ryo felt low in class since he couldn't communicate to Ibuki and had a misunderstanding with Ayame, but he also learned from Kita. Ayame actually likes Yoshi. He got an insight when he overheard girls discussing the Asamigawa Evening Festival. Ryo had an idea at the festival and invited Ibuki and the others, which he quickly carried through. His intention to pair up by drawing numbers is for him to be with Ibuki and Yoshi to be with Ayame. Instead, Ryo and Ayame had end up with the same number as Yoshi and Ibuki as well, and everyone eventually went their separate ways. Ibuki was reminded of their date when noted Yoshi's eagerness. She attempted to ask him about her yukata, but he disappeared. Yoshi was browsing the stalls when a masked man threw a fan at him, which he promptly hurled back. When Yoshi returned it, the masked man asked him for his name, and he introduced himself. He then asked as to whether the masked man was a martial artist. The man confirmed it and disclosed his name is Yuko. Unexpectedly, Ibuki arrived, and Yuko hid from her when she arrived. Angela and Tsubasa attended the festival as well. She noticed Ibuki and figured Ryo was nearby, so she utilized her substitution technique to flee. Yoshi had lost sight of Ibuki when the masked girl approached him and invited him to a shooting game. Yoshi tried it, but he couldn't strike the mark. When Ibuki came, the masked female challenged her to the same game and promised her a complimentary hot spring vacation for her family if she won. Yoshi applauded her, despite the fact that he had noted that the target had fallen because of the wind, while Ayame and Ryo had arguments about being together. Ryo clarified that his earlier confession was intended for Ibuki, and he then began complimenting Ibuki, stating she was more charming than she was. Then Ayame apologized for not being as attractive as Ibuki. He started looking for Ibuki once more, and Ryo advised she go with Yoshi instead. Ayame was about to call him. Then Ibuki unexpectedly appeared. She then declined to accompany him because she knew Yoshi was also interested in spending time with her sister. Ryo then apologized to her and recommended her to make herself known to Yoshi. He then snatched Ibuki away from Yoshi and left the two of them together. While Ryo was still fleeing, they noticed he wasn't holding Ibuki's hand. The others arrived and complimented Tsubasa's makeup. Ryo collapsed because he couldn't express his emotions. Following that, Ibuki joyfully informed them that she had won a hot spring trip. The Ikaruga sisters and Yoshi arrived at the hot springs location, but Yoshi was bored indoors, so he went for a walk and ended up running into the system the sisters wanted to see, the enormous hot spring, and invited Yoshi to join them, but he refused and went out for a stroll after the girls. Ayame questioned Bucky after they finished their bath whether the location was reserved because she hadn't seen any other guests, but Ibuki had no idea. Yoshi was enjoying a dip at the bath hot spring when the masked man from previously, Yuko, appeared. When he arrived, they discussed Yoshi's training and living at Ikaruga Dojo. Yuko then inquired if he lived with the females. This interferes with his training. He said that he gets distracted from time to time, but the girls treated him like one of their own. Yuko then explained that family meant assisting each other, and if Yoshi can't help them, he's just a dead weight on the family. During supper with the Ikaruga family, Ayame asked of the innkeeper if they had any other guests because they haven't seen any. The innkeeper elaborated. That's because the cave behind their end used to be a jail for criminals. According to legend, the criminals were killed. They ate there and become ghosts, which is why they don't have many guests after eating. Yoshi proposed Ibuki joined him in taking care of the ghosts with his assistance. Chiha overheard it and informed Amy and the others. After Ayame recommended her to accompany Yoshi Yoshi, a smoke erupted in nature, and Ayame fell asleep. The person in charge of the inn and Yuko then appeared. However, the innkeeper was Yuko's sister named Sakon. While Ibuki and Yoshi went exploring, they enter the cave, but he steps on a trap and becomes separated from her. He then notices Ayame's presence. Ayame explains that she is happy to be with Yoshi now and begins seducing him. Ibuki, on the other hand, recognizes that she's separated from Yoshi. Yuko appeared and asked if she recalled him from their younger days. She doesn't recognize him and asks if he saw Yoshi. Instead, he directs her attention to Ayame, who is hugging Yoshi. Ibuki, on the other hand, she believes it is a ghost since she knows her sister would never act like that in public. Yoshi is also aware that she is with Ayame. Ibuki beats him up again because he knows her so well and points out that her chest isn't the same size as the original. Yuko instructs her sister to use her smoke to put Ibuki to sleep and immobile. He then introduces himself as the saginomia style's leader, and his younger sister Sakon, who boasts first-rate herbal skills, also claims to be Ibuki's fiancée and begs Yoshi to leave them alone so he can remind Ibuki of him, but Yoshi refuses. When he didn't agree, Yuko challenged him to follow them. Yoshi was scarcely able to walk in the conclusion, and after riding at the inn, he attempted to find more sisters, but Oi assaulted him. However, as Yuko pointed out, Ali was not his only opponent. Despite the fact that additional people attacked him, Yoshi was able to vanquish them. He kept following Yuko, but then the Mizunagi brothers also attacked him, but he defeated them as well. He eventually spotted Shiha and Kigo, but more assassins, including one of the finest ninjas, arrived. He was about to be finished off, but Ayame arrived just in time to save him. He suggests she take her other two sisters and flee, but she reminds him of what he told her, about not giving up. After hearing it, he agrees to face the enemies together. They eventually locate Ibuki, but she awakens up and has no memory of them. When everyone had returned home, Ibuki's demeanor abruptly altered. She began seeking for her parents, so her sister explained that their parents were away training and that it was only the two of them, including Yoshi, who lives in the house. Ibuki thought he was there to destroy their dojo, so she threw him. She introduced herself as Ibuki, a 4-year-old who's skilled in the Ukiya style. While she went searching for her parents, they felt that she had reverted to her 4-year-old self as a result of the unusual drugs given by Yuko. And second, Ayame told her that they are her sisters, including Kigo, but Ibuki didn't believe them. She claimed that she only has 2 sisters and has never met anyone named Kigo. Kigo was offended and left, so Ayame chastised her, but Chiha explained that Kigo hadn't yet been born when Ibuki was 4, so she couldn't remember her at the time. Ibuki then said she despises dangerous people and headed to have dinner. Ibuki continued to act like a child, so Kigo assisted her afterwards. After Ibuki had fallen asleep, Ayame approached Yoshi and asked her whether she was aware that Yuko was her fiancé. Yoshi concluded that they would need to catch the siblings to recover Ibuki's memory. Ibuki chastises the next day for almost striking Chiha with scissors. Yoshi stepped in and asked Ibuki to apologize to Chiha, but Ibuki refused, claiming that she didn't know them. When the Saginomia siblings arrived to their home, Ayame threatened to report them to the police, but Seikon informed her that if she did, she would never get Ibuki the antidote. Yuko stated that while Seikon's prescription caused Ibuki to act like a child, she wasn't entirely to blame. The drug allowed Ibuki to return to the stage she desired and felt most at ease. In other words, her current state reflected her genuine desire, while Ibuki was able to flee. Ryo noticed her outside the house, but she refused to return inside and requested him to take her somewhere else. Yuko demanded that they give it to him so that he could care for her as her fiancé, but Ayame said she never heard of Ibuki having a fiancé. Yuko emphasized that the engagement was exclusive to the two of them, and that he offered to provide for them and let them live normally for a few months while he worked on the antidote. Ryo, on the other hand, took Bucky to the playground. Keitha became aware of Ibuki's juvenile behavior and decided to return back. Ibuki urged Ryo not to leave her alone when they returned to the dojo. Yuko promised the sisters a glittering lifestyle, and Seikon stated that if Yuko successfully married Ibuki, they'd keep living like that within the dojo you told Yoshi about, making Ibuki forget about the engagement and used his training as an excuse to remain with the Ikaruga family at the time. Angela shows up and invited Yoshi to join their Suban style. Yuko indicated that Yoshi no longer needs to stay with the females and should instead join Angela Suban style. Go with Angela to help them create the dojo. He then requested that Yoshi leave everything to him at the playground. Ima and his butler worked together to get Ibuki away from Ryo so he could finally bring her home, while Keita arrived at Ikaruga's residence and discovered the females relaxing. Yoshi thanked the girls and said he'd see them later. He's joined Angela after leaving Ibuki in Yuko's care. Then Ayame informed him that they'd be fine without him, but then they saw Kigo wasn't there. She hugged the doll inside Kigo's room that Ibuki has repaired. She then asked of her sisters whether Ibuki had actually forgotten about her. Yoshi is certain that Ibuki refused, so he asked Angela to give him one more day to help the sisters and return Ibuki to them. Meanwhile, she congratulated her brother for being a good liar because it had always been his intention to make Ibuki into a 4-year-old resident of Saginomia, and her sisters have arrived. Chiha and Kigo were suggested by Ayame to stay behind, but the two females insisted on bringing Sading Adbuki with them. Yoshi then built a raft for them to cross the river. She observed them and reported them to her brother, who then ordered her to chase them away inside. Yoshi's group was confronted by Sakon, who informed them that her brother and Ibuki was getting married. The females disagreed. She gave her maids orders to shoot them. Yoshi had successfully repelled all of the attacks, so she used her skill, will. But Yoshi was not impressed and turned it on her servants and restrained Khan. He asked her to go back to Ibuki and explain everything to her, and asked how she would feel if her brother was taken away from her. However, she slapped him and stated that her brother had been taken away from her. Yoshi and the females went to Ibuki to fight the butlers, but the butlers were too strong for them. There were many, and they were able to overcome Yoshi just as one of the butlers was ready to end him. Ryo and Tsubasa arrived to help. Angela appeared and attacked Tsubasa. Angela then removed Tsubasa's garment, so they immediately beat their opponents, as Yuko tells Ibuki about their first meeting. Ibuki defeated him in martial arts, so he invited her to meet again. And once he did, he fell in love with her at first sight. As he grew stronger, he would ask her out. However, Yoshi unexpectedly appeared in her life, but it didn't matter anymore because they were going to marry each other. Then asked Yuko if it was really the proper time, because Yoshi and the others were on their way. Yuko dismissed her as useless, and declared that he would murder Yoshi personally instead. Yuko requested him to leave because he believed he was the only one who could make Ibuki happy, because he could provide her with everything she needed. With everything Yoshi revealed, only her family could truly make her happy, and it is his responsibility to support and protect her. Defend the sisters. Yuko then ordered Sakan to stop them as they fled, and stated that even if they did, Ibuki would never be normal again because she would never get an antidote, but noticed her crying, so Yoshi intervened and stated that she knew Yuko's acts were improper, and then sought for his assistance. Yoshi continued to pursue Yuko. He reprimanded him for being blinded by his wealth and manipulating his sister. He then exhorted Yuko to fight like a true warrior. Yuko, a martial artist, noticed this and faced Yoshi in his way. Yoshi performed the same thing and was successfully defeated. When the sisters arrived, Ibuki suddenly fell off the rooftop. Her memories returned and she finally recognized everyone. Yuko tried to save her, but Satan stopped. So it was the sisters and Yoshi who jumped to her aid back at the dojo. Yoshi wrote his father a letter, reveals that he wanted to stay for training longer because he had a lot more to learn. Unfortunately, the Ikaruga family agreed, granted his request to stay, implying that he will not be returning anytime soon. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.